On a personal level, I have found that the loving, caring, gentle, patient approach is actually much more effective than the yelling at parts of myself. Instead of thinking about conquering them, annihilating them, beating them, destroying them, which is a lot of times the words that we use to talk about aspects of ourselves. Instead of that, if you just think about holding it lovingly, yeah, I'm kind of committed to doing everything lovingly, especially when working with the self. I mean, obviously with others as well. We can only give that which we're able to do with ourselves. I spent many, many years of my life trying to fix myself in all sorts of not so nice to the self ways. And what I've realized over the years is that there aren't really 2 selves or 3 selves or 20 selves. And when we talk about my this self and that self and this self, and well, this self thinks this and it's gonna, annihilate that self. And what I've realized over the years in my felt sense experience is, yeah, there's different poles. We have different patterns. We have different voices in our heads that are really reflections of things that we've heard throughout our lives that we've internalized. But there's only one self. And so if one part of me, one voice in me, is mean to the rest of it, well, at the end of the day, you're all going to bed together. And as anyone who's ever been in a relationship knows, going to sleep before you've made up doesn't feel very good, especially if you've got to share a bed. But even knowing that the other one is on the couch doesn't feel good. And so when you're working with internal conflict, voices in you, patterns in you that are pulling you in directions that are not where you want to go, to deal with them any way other than lovingly literally creates a war inside. And that's no fun. I mean, I've never felt that is productive, beneficial, helpful. You do have to be strong. You've got to use willpower. You've got to use discipline. When the alarm goes off that first day at 4 a.m, there's a horde of voices that are like, nah, let us sleep. Nah, forget it. Nah, You've got to exercise strength and discipline and willpower and a little bit of, grit. But it's not yelling at the other parts of you. It's not putting the rest of you down. It's not saying, you lazy, stupid, parts of me. It's just, yeah, you people keep screaming, but I'm going to get into the shower. Like, yeah, I hear you, and I'm getting up anyway. And in the same way, working with resistance to spiritual progress, there's a dozen reasons at least that we're resistant to it. We talk about so many of those on different nights. We're resistant because of self-sabotage. We don't believe that we're actually worthy of it. We don't believe we deserve it. We're resistant because we've been told something different about ourselves, and we want to make sure that we live in such a way that reinforces a belief that we have, even if that belief is negative and detrimental. We're resistant because Newtonian properties of inertia, right? An object at rest is going to stay at rest. And to the extent that our habits and our ways feel restful to us, we're resistant to change. We're resistant because sometimes it's threatening to family members, to friends, to our career, to our way of living. I mean, there's as I said, at least a dozen reasons that we're resistant. But trying to steamroller that resistance just splits you inside. And that's the last thing we want. We're all on a path of yoga. Yoga is union. Individual self to divine self. All of our spiritual practices are about union, oneness, expansion. The idea of chopping yourself up into bits inside and pitting one part of you against the other part of you is kind of the exact opposite of what a spiritual path is about. So on a personal level, I have found that the loving, caring, gentle, patient approach is actually much more effective than the yelling at parts of myself. But that doesn't mean that you're not strong. Love can be very strong. Love can be fierce. As anyone who's ever dealt with personally or family members or loved ones struggling with addiction, struggling with things, we've got to be fierce. There are times in our life where love is fierce. So what I have found is that if, instead of pushing against those parts, instead of thinking about conquering them, annihilating them, beating them, destroying them, which is a lot of times the words that we use to talk about aspects of ourselves, instead of that, if you just think about holding it lovingly. How many of you are parents in here? If you have kids, raise your hand if you have kids. Great. Now, if your kid is throwing a temper tantrum on the ground, there's a lot of ways you can deal with that temper tantrum. What we know psychologically about the science of healthy, effective parenting is not going to surprise you. Yelling at the kid, telling them they're worthless, stupid, useless, you're going to abandon them in the middle of the supermarket, it's not going to work. It might get them up off the floor, but they're going to need years of therapy later on. It's not the effective way. The best way of dealing with a child's temper tantrum is you hold them gently but firmly. Gently but firmly. I am here, I am present. No, I am not buying you the truck. No, we are not doing this. No, not giving in. Not going to teach you that throwing a temper tantrum is the way to get what you want, because that is also a very detrimental life lesson. Not going to give you what you want, but not going to abandon you, not going to fight you, not going to scold you, not going to harm you. I'm just going to hold you. Firmly, lovingly. And eventually the screaming and the yelling, it softens. And what you end up with is a sort of emotionally deflated, but now calm child in your arms who has learned, no matter what I do, I'm never going to be abandoned. No matter what I do, love is always there. No, the temper tantrum isn't the way to get what I want. But I'm always held. I'm seen. And whether it's an actual child of yours on the floor of a supermarket, or whether it's an inner habit experience that's giving resistance, it's the same thing. You hold it lovingly, you notice it, but you don't give in. You gently, 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 gently hold it and push through. So yeah, that's why I always suggest working lovingly.